Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal followed up their doodle scandal about Donald Trump supposedly sending a birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein over 20 years ago. They followed it up with another bombshell story, and you need to see it and you need to know about it. But you also need to know specifically about how Scott Jennings over at CNN absolutely blasted away at the other people on the panel who tried to make hay about this non-story, this completely incredible, incredulous story. Scott Jennings was on fire as usual. We'll show it to you in a second. But first, here's the headline. Looks bad, doesn't it? Justice Department told President Trump in May that his name is among many in the Epstein files. Wow. Wait a second. That's not news at all. In fact, I could have told you that yesterday. Of course, Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files. He knew Jeffrey Epstein. He was friends with Jeffrey Epstein in the 90s, just like a lot of people. Of course, he should also be in those files because in 2003, he famously kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for what we're told was incredibly inappropriate behavior that Donald Trump learned about. And as soon as he learned about it, unlike other people in his life, like Bill Gates and Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton, unlike those people, Donald Trump found out something about Jeffrey Epstein that made him angry, made him cut him off as a friend immediately, and even banned him from ever going to Mar-a-Lago again. I mean, that's common knowledge now, isn't it? So, of course, I'm sure that's referenced in the Epstein files. In fact, if memory serves, one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who was suing Epstein and other people involved in what happened with Jeffrey Epstein, I believe the attorney for that victim subpoenaed, check this out, you can search it, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, subpoenaed Donald Trump for his testimony. Donald Trump immediately called this lawyer on the phone and said, you don't need to subpoena me. I'll talk to you. I'll tell you anything you need to know. Let's go. In fact, that attorney said that of all the people that were subpoenaed in that lawsuit, Donald Trump was the most helpful in nailing Jeffrey Epstein. So, of course, Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files. Why is that news, Wall Street Journal? Well, even worse than that, it's even thinner than what I just laid out. Here, take a look at this. When Justice Department officials reviewed the Attorney General Pam Bondi called a truckload of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein earlier this year, they discovered that Donald Trump's name appeared multiple times, according to senior administration officials. In May, by the way, senior administration, who's leaking to the Wall Street Journal? Who in the hell in the Trump White House is talking to the Wall Street Journal? Stop it. These people are not your friends. In May, Bondi and her deputy informed the president at a meeting in the White House that his name was in the Epstein files, the officials said. Many other high-profile figures were also named. Trump was told being mentioned in the records isn't a sign of wrongdoing. The officials said it was a routine briefing that covered a number of topics and that Trump's appearance in the documents wasn't the focus. They told the president at the meeting that the files contained what officials felt was, wait for it, unverified hearsay about many people, including Trump, who had socialized with Epstein in the past. Some of the officials said, one of the officials familiar with the documents said they contain hundreds of others' names. So the Wall Street Journal blockbuster story is that Trump is included, and it's described specifically as unverified hearsay. And so, of course, this is a major news story. It's literally described as unverified hearsay. So absolutely, let's go with it. See, and I know a lot of you are really focused on the Epstein story, and I get it, and we cover it when it's newsworthy. But you have to understand that part of the problem with these so-called Epstein files is that there are tons of names in there. And it's true that they are unverified hearsay. Here's the thing. Here's how this is my position on this. If the Justice Department or the FBI has evidence to convict somebody of wrongdoing and criminal activity related to the Epstein affair, they should bring charges. If not, everybody just shut up. Because that's how our system works in this country. If you have evidence of a crime, you bring the evidence and you press charges. If you don't have evidence of a crime, then what do? Anybody, they could have Larry O'Connor's name in the Epstein files. I don't know. I literally don't know. They shouldn't be in there, but they could be. anybody's name, your name could be in the Epstein files. And if it is released based on all of the hysteria around this story, understandable hysteria. I mean, people's lives were ruined here in the most heinous, despicable way. And it appears that very rich and very powerful people were involved in that. And they're going to get away with it, I think, because they're very rich and powerful. And I understand how that it offends every fiber of a moral human being's conscience. I get that. I understand that. But the problem is because of that, and because that narrative is set right now, any name in there, whether that name deserves to be in there or not, if that name is released, that person will be guilty until proven innocent. And even if they try to prove their innocence and do prove their innocence, in many people's minds, they'll still be guilty. And that's wrong. It's wrong legally. It's wrong morally. And that's what makes this such a challenging and maddening issue. But mainstream media love this Wall Street Journal story. They overlook the words that say unverified hearsay. All they care about is the headline. And boy, as I said, it's quite the headline, right? Justice Department told President Trump in May that his name is among many in the Epstein files. And that's why 2 months later, he said, case closed, we're not going to release anything. Or so they say. So let's go. CNN, they got to talk about it. They want to talk about it. They demand to talk about it. And thank God Scott Jennings is there to respond.
This would be less of an issue for the president if, this is actually split MAGA in many ways. In some ways, it's the first real example we've seen of that.
Well, I think you've seen the sort of influencer, self-described influencer salon here basically in Washington that's completely spun up about it. The surveys I see of regular voters say that they're a whole lot more worried about can they afford a house? Are mortgage rates too high? What's going to happen with the economy? What's going to happen with trade? I think that the president's right to try to refocus attention on that because I think voters do care about it more. But you're correct that the talk radio influencers, the clickbait influencers, those people, they think this is right for profit.
I just reached out to a whole bunch of our Trump voters from our All Over the Map project. And you're right, actually. You're right. None of them said they're turning on the president. And they all say costs, the economy are way more important to them. But they also say this smells. They also say this smells and they want to know why. And they think they're hiding something. You may be exactly right. We'll see. And what matters a year from now matters a whole lot more than now about the political impact. But a lot of these people are Trump voters, not necessarily Republican voters. And so do they show up in the midterms? And it could be the tiniest little thing on the margins, as we learn in every one of our elections. So they do. I agree with you that it might not be the most important thing to your everyday Trump voter out there, but it's still important. And they think they're being lied.
Okay, sorry about that. Scott Jennings is the next clip. That's John King at CNN, who, by the way, left his wife and broke up Dana Bash's marriage so that he could have an affair with her at the workplace. And then I believe, forgive me if I'm wrong on this, I believe she got pregnant with his child, and then he left her for a younger woman who also worked at CNN as a producer. I think that's how it went. Yeah. But here he is lecturing the rest of us about a sexual morality. John King. But he's right there. Not a single voter actually is going to flip on Trump because of this that he's aware of. I don't doubt that that's true. That doesn't mean it's not an important story, though. All right, let's skip to Scott Jennings now.
Why not? Democrats are alleging that he is somehow part of Epstein's wrongdoing. It's been happening all day long. This is the whole point of this fiasco, is to try to create a narrative and what he calls correctly a hoax that he is somehow part of it. It's exactly what they did about Russia, and they're doing it on Epstein.
If he knew that Epstein was preying on underage girls, is that wrongdoing?
I don't know what he knew or not. All I know is they were friends.
He told us that he knew that Epstein liked women on the younger side, girls on the younger side.
And that comment and what you just said are two different things. So
okay,
if you're alleging criminality, go ahead, say it directly.
No,
say it so we can all hear it.
I am asking you a question that you are pivoting on. The question I am asking you is, if Donald Trump knew that Epstein was having sex and preying on underage girls, is that wrongdoing?
Well, I think if anyone would have known that, but I don't know that he knew that because
I don't know that either.
he disowned
The
it.
release was
But you're
on the
raising it. If I knew that you ran over someone out on the street, would that be criminal wrongdoing? You're raising it because you don't know if it's true, but you're saying it out loud because you're trying to create.
No, I'm saying it out loud because I think that's what a lot of people are wondering, because he does. The man does protest.
This is what we
Actually,
say when
don't
Ann is
think
wondering.
it's-
All right, let me let Ambassador in here.
Good job there from Scott Jennings calling her out on the bull, because that is complete shit in the way that Ann Navarro is doing that. It's very calculated. It's very wise. It's very obvious. You can see it in her eyes. She's so blatant and transparent about it that she's trying to plant those seeds and feed that narrative just because. It's the old trick. You know, have you stopped beating your wife? It's like, how do you answer that? Especially if you've never beaten your wife. So then, of course, because Scott was so good at shutting down the people on the panel, Abby Phillip, the host of the show, you know, the one with no bias there, you know, completely objective. She's just there to report the news. She then had to jump in, of course, when she wasn't interrupting Jennings all night long and will sort of pick the fight directly with him.
Just own up to it. Why doesn't he just do that?
Own up to what? What the Wall Street Journal calls unverified hearsay, which is a redundant term that an editor should strike. Unverified hearsay.
It's actually not redundant.
That is what is hearsay?
Well, hearsay is a legal term.
What is hearsay?
Hearsay is a
and it's
legal term,
unverified. So use it if you want.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Why should he go out there and have to own up to anything? He's not ever been credibly accused. The Washington Post ran a fact check on this the other day and said, we're confident there's nothing about the president. If there were, we would know about it. Unverified hearsay is what he's dealing with. And you want him to go out and fight this ghost? It's ridiculous.
That's right. Abby Phillips. Why doesn't he just own up to it? It's literally unverified hearsay. How do you own up to something that is unverified and hearsay? And by the way, it is redundant. What is hearsay? Hearsay is something that one person heard happened, not direct testimony. And if you verify it, then it's no longer hearsay. It's been verified. So by definition, hearsay is unverified. When it is verified, that means it's no longer hearsay. Abby Phillip. I think she's the president of the local Mensa club there amongst CNN employees. She has her own show, don't you know? Meanwhile, over on MSNBC this morning on Morning Joe, accidentally, I think, there was a different revelation with regard to the Epstein files that somehow slipped through at MSNBC. Watch this.
Now, listen, what does that mean? John Kerry's name is in the Epstein files. There's 1 million people's names in the Epstein files.
Hold on. I mean, he's right. There are 1 million people's names. Maybe not 1 million. That might be hyperbolic. But John Kerry? So where's the Wall Street Journal's article about that? See, that doesn't rise to the level of news because John Kerry isn't president, nor will he ever be, which is wonderful. But this proves the point. So now you got Joe Scarborough out there on MSNBC. John Kerry is probably sitting there checking out his, the people in the media have alerts set up so that if their name is ever mentioned in the media anywhere, they get a direct email saying, hey, you were just talked about. It's a thing that happens out there. A lot of people have it. I don't, by the way. I'm not a narcissist, but John Kerry is. So John Kerry's sitting there, hanging out on his yacht somewhere, or maybe on his private plane, spewing CO2 fumes in there and ruining our planet. And suddenly his phone buzzes. Hey, you were just talked about on Morning Joe. I was. Let's see. What did they say about me? What the hell? Why are you dragging me into this, Scarborough? But that's the point. This is why this is a hopeless story. And there's no winning with it at all. In fact, some of you may be angry at me because you may think I'm downplaying it, which I'm not. But I'm trying to be realistic about the facts here and the details and how this story is a monster that cannot be controlled. Just remember that. Here in this country, we are innocent until proven guilty. And if there is not evidence to back up something just like Donald Trump's name, are you happy that Donald Trump's name is now being floated around here when it is literally unverified hearsay? And the Wall Street Journal is now running with headlines and everyone's going with this story that Donald Trump knew that he was in the Epstein files and that's why he killed the story, because he doesn't want people to know that he was part of the ring or he knew about the ring and he helped cover up the ring. And it's like everyone's speculating about that now. And they could do that about anybody's name in there. And that's the problem. The original sin on all of this thing with Pam Bondi is that she even put out that first binder trying to get attention and get influencers on her side. That didn't work very well. And we refuse to participate in it. We'll continue to deal with facts here. That doesn't mean I'm undermining or downplaying the evil that Epstein and Maxwell did, and nor am I unsympathetic to the victims, because I am. But that doesn't mean you victimize other innocent people as well because you're so mad about what Epstein did. That's where we stand.